Let's do this. Let's go to let's go to the newsmaker line. We've got on 3rd District Congressman Jim Banks. Congressman Banks, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good, Pat. Does anybody listen to Whoa in the afternoon when you're not on the air?
I'm not sure anybody listens to Whoa in the afternoon when I am on the air. So when I go home I go home and I'll ask Kim, I'll say, honey, did you think the show was okay today? And she'll go, wait a minute, you were on today. Let me ask you a couple of questions here before we get on. I want to ask you about New Hampshire and all that and Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. But before I get to that, an article hit our website about Mr. Rust, who is, I think, running against you for the Republican nomination for Senate in the state of Indiana. The problem is he doesn't meet all the requirements that were not put in this year, but they're in there every year for what your voting record needs to be like. In other words, to be considered for as a Republican candidate for Congress, for the Senate, for whatever. And he didn't. And I've gone back and I've looked at stuff again, Jim, and this isn't me, you, friends, and so I'm taking you over anybody. This is just the rough facts. He voted for the Republicans back 2 elections ago, but then in the last election did not. And in all the elections before that, did not. And now he's bad-mouthing the whole idea. He goes, well, this thing with the, it's just crazy. This balloting and what the Republicans want to do, this is just insane, ridiculous, and obscure. His words, not mine. He said, I can't imagine the Indiana State Supreme Court would remove me from the ballot. Well, when you don't meet the state party requirements, I don't know that you're being removed from the ballot. I think you're just being told you don't qualify to be on it. Your turn.
Yeah, I don't know if John Rust is going to be my opponent on the May Republican primary ballot or not. What I can tell you about him, Pat, is he is a lifelong Democrat. He voted Democrat in Democrat primaries, Obama, Biden, 2008, 2012. He voted in Republican primaries until 2016 was the first time he voted Republican. He hasn't voted in a primary since then.
Yeah.
So the guy is a lifelong Democrat who sued the state to strike down the laws to allow him to run as a Republican. This guy is I don't know very much about him. I've never met him. He's never been involved in the Republican Party before. I welcome the competition. But here's the problem with John Rust. He is a ultra uber wealthy business guy, big family business, big egg business in southern Indiana.
Yep.
This guy is worth so much money, Pat, that he's already self-funded his campaign more money than my dad made in his entire life working at Dana, where my dad is retired from. This guy throws his money around. He sues the state. He's buying TV ads, attacking me. And I don't think there's anything more un-American than a really rich guy trying to buy a United States Senate seat. And even on top of that, Pat, we know just because a few months ago a federal jury in Illinois found John Rust and his company guilty of price gouging the price of eggs. That means he's stealing money. Anyone who's listening to this show by price gouging you, and by the way, they owe a $54 million fine for price gouging his company. They used an email that John Rust sent his brother to prove that they were price gouging. So they were found guilty of price gouging. This guy's worth like $100 million or more. And now he's using that money to try to purchase and buy a United States Senate seat from our great state. And that's why I'm going to fight back the next 3.5 months to make sure that this guy doesn't go anywhere near the United States Senate. He doesn't belong in the United States Senate. He belongs somewhere else for stealing money from hardworking Hoosiers like all of you and raising the price of eggs so that he can illegally and corruptly make more money and then turn around and try to use that to buy a Senate seat. It really infuriates me that a guy like that thinks that he should be our next United States Senator.
Well, I don't know if it's because of the money he has or because of the fact that great conservative George Soros has decided that he's also backing his campaign. I said if I put my tongue in my cheek any harder than I just did, I would have wounded myself. Why doesn't Soros do this? Why doesn't Soros back him to be the Democrat nominee in the fall? Why don't we do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. John Russ told in a deposition over the lawsuit that he's filed against the state, he says he doesn't want to run as a Democrat. He wants to run as a Republican because only a Republican can win in Indiana. That might be the smartest thing that John Russ has ever said. Our state is a conservative state. We deserve a conservative senator, not a guy who's been a Democrat all of his life. And so John Russ has spent, we estimate, over $3 million so far on his campaign that he's spent out of his own pocket. And the only guy who's come in to back him up so far is George Soros, who funds Common Cause, and they've entered an amicus brief into the Supreme Court hearing that's going to happen on February 12th to back up John Russ. Let me tell you, Pat, George Soros doesn't spend money to help Republicans.
No,
he's trying to get John Russ on the ballot because he would love to see a Democrat in disguise take over the Senate seat from Indiana and go to Washington to support Democrat policies, socialist policies to destroy this country. And that's what John Rust is he's a lifelong Democrat. That's all we really know about him, other than being really rich and knowing that he used corrupt business practices to get his money. George Soros is backing up John Rust for reasons that we can all obviously know, because that's the kind of guy he wants in the Senate.
Yeah, and if you can't get him in the Senate, it all is not lost. He and Mrs. Soros can continue to buy their eggs from John Rust if they'd like to.
Maybe only they can afford it.
Well, that could be it. When you get gouged for so much. Let me ask you this, Congressman Banks. We're talking to Congressman Jim Banks, 3rd District Representative, wants to be your senator from the state of Indiana. Let's talk a little bit about New Hampshire yesterday. The question that I'm going to ask when I come back after I've talked with you is anybody ready to step forward and to tell Nikki Haley that maybe, just maybe, it's over? I mean, shouldn't she come to that realization here pretty soon?
Well, Ron DeSantis did, and Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy and everyone else who's in this race so far has figured out. Took him a long time to figure it out, but that Donald Trump is going to be the nominee, and he's going to. I believe strongly that he's going to win the race in November and beat Joe Biden. So every dollar and every day that Nikki Haley spends from here forward beating up on Donald Trump only helps Joe Biden. And at this point, you have a choice, and that choice is Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And for me, that's easy. Donald Trump was a great president for 4 years. I believe he's going to be a great president again. And Joe Biden's tried to do everything that he can for 3 years now to destroy our country, and we can't take any more of it. So Nikki Haley staying in the race only helps Joe Biden. I hope she'll come to that realization sooner than later, that she's not helping the Republican Party or the cause of our country by staying in the race. And New Hampshire proved it. I mean, Donald Trump won by the largest margin ever in the New Hampshire primary, the same in Iowa. He won by a landslide. There's not a single state in the country, including Nikki Haley's home state of South Carolina, that's not going to support Donald Trump and where Donald Trump's going to win the primary. And you got everyone from both of the senators to the governor, almost all of the congressional delegation from South Carolina. They're all supporting Donald Trump over their home state candidate. And I think it's obvious, Pat, to you, but you shouldn't run for president if your home state's not going to support you.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty tough, isn't it?
Haley.
I mean, that's really tough. And it's just incredible to me. I mean, she was the governor there from 2011 to 2017, so she served as 6 years, and then she became our ambassador to the United Nations. But if after being governor in 6 years, if it's pretty obvious you're not going to carry your own state, you might want to do something else.
Yeah, I think so. Look, Nikki Haley's done a lot of good things, and many things I agree with her on, but every day she stays in this race, she's helping Donald Trump, or helping Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump, and that's why I hope she'll drop out tonight. I mean, at this point, the writing's on the wall. That's what she should do.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. So now you are you back in D.C. right now?
I'm all over the place. I'm fundraising. I'm campaigning. I'm in Indiana for the next couple of days. And
Okay.
then we go back into session next week and crisscrossing the state, doing everything I can to make the case that I'm the best conservative and Republican choice. And the May 7 is my mom's birthday. It's also the Republican primary day in Indiana, and we're working hard, gearing up for that date 3.5 months from now.
Well, you can't let your mom down.
That's right.
I mean, she won't bake you pie that week.
I've let her down many times. I'm not going to let her down on May 7th this year.
Yeah, same with me and my mom, who's no longer alive to defend herself. Are you feeling? I know the John Rust thing, and to me that's just a sideways burp in all this stuff. Are you feeling pretty good about the run for the Senate?
We feel great. I mean, the support we have from every corner of the state, the endorsements from leaders in every single county in the state. We feel great about it. I'm not taking anything for granted. And when a rich guy steps up, who's a lifelong Democrat, is trying to buy the seat, it just means that we're going to fight back even harder and campaign harder and do what we have to do to do our part to make sure that the Senate seat in Indiana stays in the Republican column, because we have a really good chance this year of winning Senate seats, beating Democrats in Montana, Ohio, West Virginia, Arizona, and other states to give the Republicans a majority in the Senate to work with President Donald Trump to save our country. And I'm doing my part to make sure that happens.
Well, listen, best of luck to you, my friend. We, the lovely Mrs. Miller and I and a couple of our friends, we leave tomorrow morning for Nashville as we're going down there for an inspirational weekend with the Collingsworth family and several other people. So I'm going to be out of pocket and be back here in the chair on Tuesday. So probably we'll try to talk to you again next Thursday on our regular day. I appreciate David Keller and Buckley and everybody else there doing all they could to make sure I got you on a day early this week. I didn't want to go the whole week and not have you. And then the whole John Rust story kicked up, and I'm like, okay, I can't let this sit there. So, you know me, it doesn't take a whole lot to trigger my fire. So I thought I might as well go after him. I don't think I'll ever meet John Rust, but if I do, I guarantee by the time we meet face to face, he'll probably have some idea who I am.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I have no doubt about that.
Yep.
Have fun in Nashville.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you very much. Have a great weekend.
All right. Goodbye.
3rd District Congressman Jim Banks, who has just stepped off a Southwest Airlines flight, and that's how we were able to grab him when we did. We're going to be back with more straight ahead.
Podcasts by Federated Media.